Parijataya Totravetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhe Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our Bhagavad Gita Bhakti Shastri course. Now we are starting with the 12th chapter. The 12th chapter, as we know, is called as Bhakti Yoga or Devotional Service. Prabhupada translates it literally. And this is the last chapter in the Bhakti section. So all the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita talk about Bhakti, but the first 56 chapters focus on karma and how karma leads to Bhakti. The last 6 chapters focus on Jnana and how Jnana leads to Bhakti. The middle 6 chapters focus on Bhakti itself. So Arjuna has, in the 10th chapter, accepted Krishna's supremacy and asked to see the the vibhutis, the manifestations of Krishna's greatness in nature. Then while Arjuna is hearing that, then Krishna makes a reference to how he is sustaining the whole world with just one fragment of his being, that he mentions in 10.42. In response to that, Arjuna asked the question to be shown the Virat Rupa, and that is shown in the 11th chapter. Now, after seeing this magnificent and awe-inspiring and in some ways scaring form of the absolute truth, Arjuna has another question. What about the impersonal form? What about now the word we could say impersonal form is a paradox, because form cannot be impersonal. Form is normally personal. So you could say the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. So what about the impersonal aspect? Now, if we remember in 9.15, it was a critical verse that underlies much of the flow of the later chapters. So, Jnana yagyena chapyanye yajanto mam upasate ekatvena pruthatvena bahudha vishvato mukham. So, ekatvena in oneness, pruthatvena bahudha, through the worship of the demigods, and vishvato mukham. So these were 3 ways in which people do jnana yagya. People worship Krishna through the ritual, through sacrifice of knowledge. So in that, pruthatvena bahudha, through the worship of the demigods, that has been talked about in the 9th chapter itself, from verses 9.20 to 28, where Krishna says that those who worship the demigods, they have to continue on the cycle of birth and death. Gata gatam kama kama labhante is 9.21, and as for the devotees, ananyas chintayanto mam, he says yogakshemam vahamyam, I protect them. So the point which we are making is 3 things were talked about, and 2 of them have been dealt with. So the first that was talked about was demigod worship, that was dealt about in that chapter itself. Then Vishwarupa Upasana, Vishvato Mukham, that was talked about briefly in that chapter itself, from verses 16 to 19, and then it was talked about in the 11th chapter. Now what remains is Ekatvena, oneness. So what does this refer to? What is this whole concept of worshipping of the absolute truth in the impersonal manifestation, thinking of oneself as one with the absolute truth? That is what Arjuna will question now. So in that sense, the 12.1 is not immediately related with 11.55. There is no linear chronological correlation with just the previous verse, but it is an exploration of a discussion that had started earlier. So what was mentioned in 9.15, that is now being explicated by Krishna, and Arjuna is being inspired by Krishna from within to ask questions which will lead to the further exploration of all the relevant topics. So the 12th chapter starts with a question by Arjuna. Let's quickly look at the flow of the 12th chapter. So 1 to 7 in this talks establish how worship of the personal form is superior to worship of the impersonal Brahman. Then 8 to 12 talk about the progressive stages of bhakti. And after that, 13 to 20 talk about qualities that endear one to Krishna. qualities that endear one, because of which we feel, because of which these qualities Krishna likes in his devotees. So let's look at this one by one. Let's start with 12.1. Arjuna Vacha Evam Satata Yukta Ye Bhaktastvam Paryupasate Ye Chapyaksharam Avyaktam Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha. So, Evam Satata Yukta Ye, those who are constantly engaged. Bhaktastvam Paryupasate, with bhakti, Tvam Paryupasate, they worship you. Ye Chapyaksharam Avyaktam. In contrast, those who Akshara and Avyakta, that which is beyond the senses, that which is unmanifested. Tesham Ke, among those who are Yoga Vittamaha. Vittamaha. So Tamaha, as we know, is superlative. It is the best. So who are the most perfect in yoga? This is an interesting question, in the sense that both are on the transcendental path. Now who are these two categories that are being referred to, which Krishna is saying, okay, both seem to be good, but who is better, or who is the best? Tamaha means best. So now if we look at the words itself, Bhaktas Tvam Paryupasate, so it's very clearly referring to the devotional path and the devotional conception. Bhaktas is itself clearly the devotion, and Tvam is also referring to you. Now, Evam Satata Yukta Ye. So now Satata Yukta is also a very clear reference to something, not just the meaning of it, what it literally means, but what the way it has been used earlier also. Krishna has said in the Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajitam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mamupayanti Te. So in 10.10, he has used the same word Satata Yukta as has been used over here. So Satata Yuktanam it was, here Satata Yukta. So clearly the first part is referring to bhaktas. And then Ye Chapi Aksharam Avyaktam. So now Akshara and Avyakta, what does it refer to? Now if we look at it, the way Krishna has used the word Akshara and Avyakta in the past, the word, it basically means unmanifested, that which is not perceivable. So now if that is to be considered to be a comparative object of worship, then that will refer to the absolute truth in terms of the impersonal aspect. So Arjuna is asking basically, which form of worship is better? Personal or impersonal? Which aspect of the absolute truth is better to worship? Or more precisely, his question is, which worshippers are better situated? Which worshippers are more intimately united with you? Those who are worshippers of the impersonal aspect, or those who are worshippers of the personal aspect? So now, moving forward, let's look at Krishna's reply. So Krishna's reply focuses on establishing the personal aspect very explicitly. So what Krishna does is, he focuses on using words which remove all ambiguity from the context. But sometimes when a question is asked and the answer is given, if the answer is not very clearly related with the words, then there can be multiple interpretations that are possible. But the way Krishna uses words over here, he makes things so unambiguous that it becomes very easy to understand what he is referring to. So let's look at the next verse. So Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Mayyavesha mano ye mam nityayukta upasate shraddhaya parayo petas te me yukta tamamataha. So Mayyavesha mano ye mam. Mayyavesha means fixing the mind on me. Mano ye mam. Second time the word is mam. So actually fixing the mind on me, and mam ityayukta upasate. They worship me constantly. So if we look at the previous verse, Previous was satatayukta upasate. Evam satatayukta. Ye bhaktastvamparyupasate. So the first two lines, whatever it was being talked about, that is what Krishna is referring to over here. Yukta upasate. Same words are there. And nitya is also there. Then Arjuna had used the word tvam. Krishna is using the word mam. Mam and mai. So it's very clear. And then vittamaham. Tesham ke yoga vittamaham. And Arjuna is also using, Krishna is also using the word tama. Yukta tama mataha. So shraddhaya parayopetas. With transcendental faith. So what Krishna is telling is, those who fix their mind on Krishna and worship him constantly, mano, they fix the mind on Krishna, mam nitya yukta upasate, they worship him constantly with faith that is transcendental. They are the most intimately united with me. Now, a very significant point of this is that Krishna is using shraddhaya parayopetas, that their faith is transcendental. So the impersonal, the Mayavadis especially, have the idea that we can choose our Ishtadev and worship that particular form till we come to the level of transcendence, when we go beyond to the form to the formless. So that conception is not supported by the Bhagavad Gita, because it is parayopetas. Parayopetas means that he is in the transcendental faith. So with transcendental faith, one fixes the mind on Krishna. With transcendental faith, one worships Krishna. So it is not that we transcend Krishna at a particular point and go to the impersonal light. No. With transcendental faith, that means even after we come to transcendence, we continue fixing the mind on Krishna. So what Arjuna's question was, Krishna has answered with crystal clear unambiguity, that those who worship me, those who worship me and worship me with transcendental faith, they are the most intimately united with me. So now Prabhupada, to make things even more clear, translates here as, they fix their minds on my personal form. My personal form. Now, we may say there is no reference to the word rupa, and there is no Sanskrit equivalent to personal form in the original verse. But the point is that Krishna has used very specific word like mam and mai, and obviously it is not that there is some impersonal light that is speaking over there. It is Krishna in a personal form standing in front of Arjuna and speaking. So when Krishna is saying mam, it means mam. If Krishna wanted to say, oh, you have to worship some light beyond me, I am just a temporary manifestation of that light, then Krishna would have said like that. So what is there in the verse, it may not be there in the literal Sanskrit of the verse, but it is implicit in the context of the verse. Who is speaking this? It is Krishna in a personal form who is speaking it, and he is referring to himself, mam. So those who fix their minds on my personal form are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith. So now Krishna answers, yes, the personalists are the most intimately united with him. The personalists are most intimately united with him. So it's a very clear answer. Krishna doesn't leave any scope for ambiguity. Now, even if there was some ambiguity, if there are two alternatives which were raised in in Arjuna's question, and then naturally the subsequent verses will analyze those two alternatives. So the second verse has analyzed the first alternative. A third, fourth, fifth verses will analyze the second alternative. And the second alternative also uses words which make it clear what is being referred to. So let's look at third and fourth. Yeto aksharam anirdeshyam avyaktam paryupasate sarvatra gamachintyam ja kutastham achalam dhruvam sanyamendriya gramam vinyam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha. So Krishna has used the word, same words, aksharam and avyaktam. So these are the words which are used by Arjuna in his question. Evam satata yukta ye bhaktastam paryupasate ye chapya aksharam avyaktam So whatever Arjuna has used, Krishna has used the same words, and he has given some further words to describe also. Aksharam, avyaktam, and then he says anirdeshyam, that which cannot be nirdershan, the description of it we cannot point it out to you. And then how is it? Sarvatragam, it's all pervading. Achintyam is inconceivable. Kutastham, it is kutastham, fixed, unchanging. Achalam, non-movable. Dhruvam, which is factual. So he gives how many attributes of that absolute truth? 1, 2, Aksharam is 2, Avyaktam is 3. Then 2 more in C part of the verse, Sarvatragam Achintyam is 5, and 3 in the last part of the verse, in the last line of the third verse, 3D, Kutastham Achalam Dhruvam. So it's clear that he is referring to the non-manifested aspect, the impersonal aspect. And then what happens by this is, he says, how is that to be worshipped? How do we worship the impersonal manifestation of the absolute truth? Sanyamendriya gramam. Sanyamendriya gramam. Niyamendriya. So one has to have niyam. One has to have strict rules and regulations. So indriya gramam, to control all the senses. And then Sarvatra samabuddhaya, one tries to have an equal vision towards everything. And te prapnuvanti mameva, that te prapnuvanti, they will also obtain me. And Krishna says, certainly. When sarvabhuta hiterataha. So in this verse, Krishna does not speak anything negative about these people. They will also obtain me. Certainly they will obtain me. But the next verse he will describe that, it's not so easy. Next verse he will say, Klesho diktarastesha. We'll look at that verse. But here basically what Krishna is telling is, as far as he is concerned, Arjuna's question was, who are most intimately united? Yes, those who fix their mind on me are most intimately united. And the others, they will also come to me. But then there is a complex process that they have to follow. The process is basically centered on equanimity, on equal vision towards everything and towards everyone. So now let's look at the next verse and then we'll elaborate on this further. Klesho diktarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham dehavad bhiravapyate. So now if you see, there are 2 words which are very clearly indicating something negative. Klesha and dukkham. Klesha is trouble, dukkha is misery. So klesha adhiktaraha. Adhiktaraha means very much. So adhiktara means largely, mostly. Tesham, those people, who are these people? They were referred to in the previous verse. They will get klesha, avyakta asakta chetasam. So their consciousness is attached to the impersonal manifestation. That means they are attracted to the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. Avyakta hi gatir dukkham. So those who make avyakta the goal of their life, gatir dukkham, progress is very difficult for them. Dehavadbhir avapyate. Dehavadbhir, those who are embodied. Avapyate, so progress is very troublesome when the attachment to the impersonal aspect is there, especially for those who are embodied. So why is it troublesome? Because it is difficult for us to conceive or concentrate on that which has no form. Actually, we have discussed earlier about the negative axis and the positive axis, remember? So the material form is on the negative axis, the spiritual form is on the positive axis, and the impersonal Brahman is like the 0 point. So just giving up the material forms and the attraction to the material forms and trying to concentrate the mind on nothing, on the attributeless, activityless Brahman, it is very difficult for everyone in general, and especially for the embodied soul. We generally have to think in terms of forms and things and the impersonal is something which is very difficult to think about. So we are all used to forms, and if you just told don't think about any form, then it's very difficult. What do you think about? It's just as it is extremely difficult to create a vacuum, and it is extremely easy to destroy a vacuum. If I take a glass and I decide I want to make the glass empty, so I just put there's some water in it, I throw away, I may say it's become empty, but still it's filled with air. If I had to remove the air, it's very difficult. It's a laborious process. And then even if I succeed in removing all the air and creating a perfect vacuum over there, what is going to happen? The moment some opening comes up, some hole or some sort of space is left open, then air will come inside. So vacuum is extremely difficult to create and even more difficult to sustain. So like that, basically the meditating on the impersonal aspect is like creating a vacuum in the consciousness. That means don't think about anything. Why don't think about anything? Because all material forms and material attributes are rejected as negative, as entangling, as a part of illusion which need to be given up. But then there is no positive spiritual conception in terms of forms, activities, attributes. So then what is there to think about? It's very, very difficult. So now dehavadbhiravapyate, for those who are embodied. Now the impersonalists may argue that okay, actually the impersonal reality is the actual reality, but as long as we are embodied, it's difficult to think about it. Once we go beyond the embodied, then we'll be able to think about it. And then that is the ultimate reality. But Krishna is telling, now because you are embodied, you can't think about it. Now actually speaking, that can be an interpretation which one can make if that's what one wants to do. But that's not an interpretation that is supported by the Bhagavad Gita. We'll see in the next verses also Krishna says that I personally lift those who devote themselves to me. Teshamaham samudharta. But apart from the immediate context where the overall tenor is fix the mind on me, the important thing is Krishna has not said anywhere that bhakti is only for the less intelligent people. Krishna has not said anywhere that once we become more intelligent, we will go beyond the personal form to something higher. So here the dehavadbhir point is not, Krishna doesn't say that, okay, it's klesha as long as you're dehavadbhir, but afterwards when there is no dehavadbhir, when you don't have a body, then it will no longer be klesha. Krishna does not say that. Krishna simply makes the point that because we are embodied and we used to thinking about form, so it's difficult for us to think of anything which is formless, attributeless, activityless. But that does not mean that the formless, attributeless, activityless thing is the ultimate truth. It's difficult and it's also not the ultimate truth. How do we know that is not the ultimate truth? Because there are so many verses which Krishna has said that he when he is saying I, is referring to himself. I, aham sarvasya prabhavo, 10.8, mattah parataram na anyad, 7.7, maya adhyakshena prakriti, 9.10. So many places he has said. And then avyakta avajananti ma mudha. Here he is contrasting and saying those who think that the impersonal is higher, he is saying they are mudha. And then avyaktam viktimapannam manyante mama buddhaya. So 9.11 and 7.24, there are two important verses where Krishna does very clearly say that the impersonal aspect is not the highest, and in fact those who think that the impersonal is higher than the personal, they are completely mistaken. They are totally misled. So dehavadbhir is simply illustrating the point here, is simply drawing attention to the point that as it is we are accustomed to thinking in a particular way because of having a body, and as we are accustomed to think in a particular way, so this is difficult to think about. So this dehavadbhir does not contain any implication about the nature of ultimate reality. It does not in any way state that the ultimate reality is impersonal. All that it says is, in our current situation, where we have a body and where we are habituated to bodily activity, it is very difficult for us to think of that which is having no qualities, no activities, nothing practically speaking. So, is it that when one is in the mode of goodness, one can think of the impersonal aspect better, and when one is transcendental, one can think of the impersonal aspect more? Actually speaking, our obsession with material forms will become less and less when we rise from the lower modes towards the higher modes. So when one is goodness, one is more contemplative. And when one is more contemplative, surely one can think more about certain features of the absolute truth. But that does not necessarily mean that that is the highest aspect of the absolute truth. So relatively speaking, if one wants to meditate on something impersonal, it might be easier if one is less attached to the body, less attached to the bodily conception. But that is not a comment indicating that the impersonal aspect is itself the highest aspect of the absolute truth. It's just that is the nature of our conditioning. When we are in passion, we have to act at the bodily level a lot. When we are in goodness, our activity is more at the intellectual level. We don't need to act so much at the bodily level. It is said that there are 3 kinds of people. Some people make things happen, some people watch things happen, and some people wonder what happened. So this is a quote by some materialistic thinker, but these 3 can be roughly correlated with the 3 modes. Some people make things happen. In goodness, people are not themselves running around. They're thinking and they make things. As if they're lazy, Prabhupada would say Brahmana is lazy intelligent. Make things happen. And some people watch things happen. In passion, people want to make things happen, but because they're so passionate, so often things go out of control for them. I wanted to do this, but this happened. What should I do? And what should I do? What should I do? So people they watch things happen. And in ignorance, people are so much caught in their own world that what happened? Just don't understand anything. Some people wonder what happened. So in goodness, because one has a greater control over one's own mind and senses, one can, if one wants to act in the material world, one can act also better. And if one wants to distance oneself from the material world, one can also do that better. So in that sense, goodness is more conducive for contemplating on higher realities. And that is not just impersonal reality, that applies even to the personal aspect. A devotee in goodness can think about Krishna much better than a person in the impersonal realization. So a devotee in goodness can think about Krishna much better than what a devotee in passion and ignorance can. So in general, contemplation on any aspect of the absolute truth will become easier as one moves towards goodness and higher. But that is not a comment on which is the highest aspect of the absolute truth. For that, we will have to look at the other aspects of the scriptures, and we'll have to get a broader understanding of the absolute truth. So now Ramanujacharya gives another meaning of this whole section. If we look at what Krishna has referred to in 12.3, the attributes Aksharam, Anardesham, Avyaktam, Sarvatragam, Achintyam, Kutastham, Achalam, Dhruvam, these 8 attributes. Now they are strikingly similar to the attributes of the Atma which Krishna has referred to in the 2nd chapter. There avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate sarvatragam. So there also avyakta was there, achintya was there, sarvatragam, kutastham achalam dhruvam. So kutastham was there. So like that, there were these attributes that were talked about, especially in verses 2.24, 25, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 26 basically. Those 4 verses. So many of these attributes have been talked about. That means what Ramanujacharya says is that he explains Arjuna's question in slightly different terms. He says that what Arjuna is asking is, if one fixes the mind on Atma and slowly tries to realize that I am the Atma, and on the other hand, the other person doesn't try to focus on Atma Gyan. The other person focuses simply on fixing the mind on you. Who among the two is better? So let's try to understand what the question is. In the spiritual arena, there are 2 fundamental objects. There is the Jivatma and there is the Paramatma. There is all of us living entities, and there is the Supreme Lord. So correspondingly, we can choose 2 objects for meditation. Either when I am trying to act in this world, I can try to think, I am not the body, I am the soul. Atma Gyan. And by cultivating Atma Gyan, we can become detached from matter and we can become attached to spirit. That's one way we could do it. And the other aspect is that we could go from go and focus the mind on the absolute truth in the personal aspect. So what Arjuna is asking is that should, among those who fix the mind on you and those who try to realize their atma, who are better? So who are better situated? Now if you see, if you remember how the flow of the first few chapters is, in the first 6 chapters, the focus of the Bhagavad Gita was not on Bhagavan. We discussed how the word Mam doesn't come very frequently in the first 6 chapters. Certainly if you compare with the 7th to 12th chapters, it's very, very less frequent. The word Mam comes only very infrequently. 2.61 it comes once, 3.30 it comes once. Then there is one section from 4.1 to 4.15 where it comes, but after that only one verse 4.35, and then 5th chapter there's only once again 5.29, and 6th chapter also is not very common. It says 6.14 and 15, and then 6.30, 31, and then 6.47. It's not very frequent. As compared to that, Mam and May, it comes almost every alternate verse in between 7th to 12th chapters. So in the first to 6 chapters, the focus has primarily been on detaching oneself from the body and acting in that mode of detachment so that one can progress towards the absolute truth. So it was all based on atma gyan, because at that time when the seeker is progressing, the seeker may not know that the absolute truth is a person, and that person is the ultimate object of meditation. So that has been made clear at the end of the 6th chapter, where the topmost yogi is described to be Krishna. Yoginam, topmost yogi is described to be one who fixes the mind on Krishna. Yoginam vi sarvesham matgatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajite yomam samaya yuktatamu matah. That was 6.47. And then from 7.1 onwards, it was maya sakta manaha, fix the mind on me. So 7th chapter onward, the mood of the Bhagavad Gita changes completely. Krishna starts focusing on more and more on the fixing the mind on him and practicing the process of bhakti. So basically here in the 12th chapter, at the end of the bhakti section, according to Ramacharya, what is the question? The question is, Krishna, you have told one mode of worship, from one mode of spiritual advancement and realization from chapters 2 to 6, and you have told another mode from 7 to 11. So 2 to 6 focuses on atma gyan, and 7 to 12 focuses on Bhagavad Chintan. So among these two, which is better? That is Arjuna's question. And Krishna has clearly said that those who fix their mind on me, they are better situated. And as he moves forward, he elaborates on that. So now let us, if there are some doubts, for second verse said, yes, these are those who fix their mind on me are most intimately united. Third and fourth says that they will also come to me, but fifth says it's difficult. Klesha is there, dukkha is there. Now 6th and 7th makes it clear again what is Krishna's preference in this case. So let's look at this verse, the 6th and 7th verses here. Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate teshamaham samudharta mrityu samsare sagarat bhavami nachirat partha mahyaveshvita chetasam. Ye tu sarvani karmani, all activities, mai sanyasya, offering all your activities to me, matparaha, making me the ultimate goal, ananyenaiva yogena, ananya. That means, ananya means, as we discussed, pure. The word ananya has come earlier in ananyas chintayanto mam in 9.22. So ananyenaiva, without any distraction, the mind steadily fixed on me, yogena, with the practice of yoga, mam dhyayanta upasate, they meditate on me, they worship me. For such people, what happens? Tesham aham samudharta. For those people, aham samudharta, I become their deliverer. Mrityu samsara sagarat. In this ocean of material existence, Mrityu samsara, it's an ocean. Bhavami, I become Nachirat, Partha. Nachirat means not after a long time. Prabhupada says swift deliverer. Mai aveshita chetasam. Those who fix their mind on me. So again, if we look at the consistently similar words that our Krishna has used, so 12.2 starts with Mai aveshya mano yemam, and 12.7 ends with Mai aveshita chetasam. So Mai aveshya, it's very clear that these two are referring to the same aspect, the same person, same transcendentalist, that those who fix their mind on Krishna. Etu sarvani karmani. So those who offer all their works to me, those who renounce the works for me, those who make me the ultimate goal, those who meditate on me, those who worship me, for them I become the deliverer. I become the deliverer. So here Krishna is telling the difference between meditating on him and meditating on the impersonal. The impersonal, being impersonal is not reciprocal. What does that mean? The impersonal is impersonal in the sense that in that aspect of the absolute truth, the personality of the Lord is not manifested. So it's qualityless, it's attributeless, it's in one sense emotionless. So that's why there cannot be any reciprocation. It's not reciprocal. It is neutral. So the impersonal cannot extend and help. It's like somebody is fallen in a well and you find, okay, from that part of the well a rope is extending down. So then I have to catch hold of the rope and then I have to laboriously climb up slowly. But on the other hand, if there is just some object from which the rope is hanging down, the object is unconscious, the object is dead, it's impersonal, and then the rope is coming down, I catch the rope and try to climb myself up. On the other hand, if there is a person over there, then what happens? That person is being slowly lifted up. That person is going to help us climb up, because that person is having emotions and that person cares. So if there is a person, please help me, then yes, I'll help you. So it's not that we just have to pull ourselves up. We just hold on and the person pulls us out. Like that Krishna is telling, Aham samudharta, that I become the swift deliverer. Aham samudharta. And when he says that in this way I become the swift deliverer, what is the essential point he is making here? That this process is easier because I intervene personally in favor of my devotees. Here the sweetness of Krishna's love is manifested, and how Krishna definitely prefers the devotional path. He says, I will intervene, I will lift up. Now, how does Krishna intervene? Many of us may have seen that picture in Bhagavad Gita as it is. A person is swimming in the ocean, struggling and drowning, and then the Lord comes down. Lord comes with the Garuda, flying on the Garuda, and the Lord extends his hand down, and the person is raising up, and the Lord just catches him, picks him up, seats him on the Garuda by his side, and takes him back to the spiritual world. So like that Krishna says, Tesham aham samudharta, I will become the personal deliverer. So Sridhar Swami here gives the explanation, which is, I'll first give the explanation, then I'll elaborate on it. He says that actually Krishna gives knowledge. What is that knowledge? Krishna gives the understanding of the impersonal aspect of spiritual knowledge by which the devotee becomes disentangled. So his idea is that the devotee needs knowledge for disentanglement, and Krishna personally gives that knowledge. So in that is Krishna's mercy, aham samudharta. So the Gaudiya Vaishnavacharya Chakravarti Pad, they don't particularly appreciate this explanation, and they say that it is not that Krishna just gives knowledge. Krishna personally intervenes also, as he has made out, and as he has mentioned in Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. Aham, he is saying. He's talking not just about the intervention in terms of some knowledge giving, he's talking about intervention in terms of his personal being also. So we see that this is the nature of the Lord, that Aham Samudharta, I become the swift deliverer. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, it is explicitly stated here that the devotees are very fortunate to be delivered very soon from material existence by the Lord. So Prabhupada says explicitly stated. How is it explicitly stated? Aham Samudharta. And Bhavami Nanachirat Partha, delivered very soon. And what is the kind of work that one is expected to do? Prabhupada writes over here, it does not matter what kind of work one engages, but that work should be done only for Krishna. So, yetu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha. So, Arjuna may have a doubt at how can I fight a war? So, war involves killing, war involves bloodshed, war involves passion. Will that really be devotional service? No, so sarvani karmani. According to our prescribed duties, we may have different kinds of works to do. But whatever be the kind of work that we have to do, that is fine. If we just do it faithfully, then and we fix the mind on Krishna, then we'll become elevated. This of course is not a license for doing sinful activities. Here the whole context is within Varanashram doing one's prescribed duties. Sarvani Karmani refers to whichever Varana we might be, whatever be the other duty that is Aswadharma, we can do it for the Lord's sake. And then Prabhupada explains that the Lord himself takes him. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky. What does it mean? That the devotee does not need to wait, because the Lord will himself take him, so there's no need to wait. Bhavami na chirat partha. And Prabhupada quotes this very beautiful verse, very moving verse from Varaha Purana. Nayami praparamam sthanam archiradigatim vina garudaskandham aropya yathecham anivaritaha. So, Nayami means I take paramam sthanam, to the supreme destination. Archiradigatim vina. So Archi refers to the path of, in the Vedic literature it is said the soul can go by different paths. There is the Devyan and there is the Pitrayan, and when one is following these different paths, then there are different devtas which guide the soul in its post-mortem journey. Post-mortem means after death. So here Krishna is telling that Archiratrigatim vina, that actually they are not required for a devotee. The Lord will personally take him without the intervention of all these people. And then how? Garudaskandham aropya. The beautiful verse. Krishna says, Garudaskandham, on the shoulders of Garuda aropya, I am situated. And yathecham anivaritaha, yathecham. What is the desire of the Lord's heart? The desire of the Lord's heart is to take the devotee back to the spiritual world. Anivaritaha. Anivaritaha means without any distraction, without any obstacle, without any slowing down. Nayami paramam sthanam. I will take to the supreme destination. This is the sweetness of the promise of the Lord. He's assuring. And Prabhupada says for a devotee, the Lord is, for the devotee is like a child, and the Lord is like the parent who will take care of the child. But then the Narayaniya is a very important section from the Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata, there are many. It's Mahabharata is a compendium of wisdom, and all the knowledge of dharma is at various levels. Not all of it is transcendental. So all of it contains valuable information, valuable knowledge, valuable insights, but they are at multiple levels of dharma. So in the whole vast Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vishnu Sahasranam, the Narayana. These are considered to be works that are they're purely devotional. The bhakti emphasis on them is much more than other sections. So in the Narayana, this verse is quoted, is given, which Prabhupada is quoting. Ya vai sadhana sampatti purushartha chatushtaye taya vina tadapnoti naro narayana ashrayah. So here, as well as in the earlier verse, Prabhupada is not giving a literal translation of the verses. He's giving a rough meaning of those verses. Ya vai sadhana sampatti purushartha chatushtaye. So purushartha chatushtaye, the purusharthas are dharma, artha, kam, moksha. Taya vina tadapnoti. So tadapnoti, taya vina. Even if the transcendental doesn't progress through each of these, so sadhana sampatti. Normally, by doing specific sadhans, one gets one is enriched by those sadhans. One gets the particular destination. One may get dharma, artha, kama, like that, whatever. But that nara who has taken Narayana Ashraya, that person, that human being who has taken the shelter of Lord Narayan, what happens? That person attains the supreme destination just because of having taken shelter of the Supreme Lord. And then Prabhupada writes again further, the devotee can approach the supreme destination easily and happily. Very beautiful word, easily and happily. So it's Sulabha and it is Susukham. The Sulabha was mentioned in 8.14 and Susukham was mentioned in 9.2. So Sulabha and Susukham. So easily and happily. And this has not been talked about of any other path. And that's what Prabhupada said, this destination cannot be attained by other process. And then Prabhupada also quotes again from the last 18.6 Charam Shloka, Sarvadharman Parityajya. So normally Prabhupada in the purports is more analytically devotional. Analytically devotional means that Prabhupada analyzes and comes to the conclusion about how devotional service is the best way. But in his purports, there are a few occasions where Prabhupada gives direct instructions. Even in the scriptures also, we will see that there are different verses. And not all verses contain instructions. So for example, if you look at the verse, Matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. So there is no truth higher than me. All things are, and that I pervade all things just as a necklace is pervaded by the thread. So now in this, is there any instruction? No, we can draw some instruction. And we should be able to see the Lord's presence everywhere, even if that presence is not visible. That's fine. But there is no direct instruction in this verse. This is an informational verse. Now some other verses, for example, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja. Give up all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. So even in the scriptures, some verses are informational and some verses are instructional. So those verses that are instructional are far more important than the verses which are informational. So here Prabhupada generally uses an analytical, informational tone, but in some places Prabhupada becomes devotional. It's instructional. He says, do this, do this. That's what Prabhupada does in this section. And the conclusion, he says, let everyone take shelter of the supreme omnipotent Godhead Krishna. That is the highest perfection of life. So let everyone take shelter. Such is the mercy of the Lord that he will say, he says, Aham samuddharta, na chirat. He says, I will deliver and not too far away, not too long time. Soon I will do it. So why should one not take shelter of that Lord? Let us take that shelter of that Lord immediately. So now let us move to the next section. So let's quickly look at the sections. So 1 to 7 was worship of impersonal form. Personal form is greater than worship of impersonal Brahman. Now 8 to 12 talk about the various stages of bhakti. So let's look at one verse. And then we will look at the various levels. Mayyeva mana dhadsva mayi buddhim niveshaya nivasishyasi mayyeva ataurdhvam na samshayah. Mayyeva means me alone. Mana dhadsva, fix your mind on me. Mayi buddhim niveshaya, and let your intelligence be fixed on me. Nivasishyasi mayyeva, that in this way you will reside in me. Nivasishyasi, nivas means to reside. So nivasishyasi means you will reside in me. Ata urdhvam na samshayah, of this there is no doubt, na samshayah. So the point here that is being mentioned is that Krishna is giving the highest level. That if you can fix your mind on me, if you can have your intelligence in me, then you will live in me itself. Generally, we live where our subtle body lives. We don't live where our physical body lives. Now, an addict is living in a comfortable home, or maybe working in a reasonably well-furnished office. But the addict is not there. The mind is with the object of addiction, maybe alcohol, it may be drugs, whatever. And because of that, the addict has no peace of mind. The addict is being dragged, pulled, pushed, pinched. So essentially the point is, we don't live where our gross body is. We live where our subtle body is. What is the implication of that we live where our subtle body is? The implication is that if our subtle body is with Krishna, then we will also be with Krishna. If our subtle body is not with Krishna, then we will not be with Krishna. So now how do we get our subtle body with Krishna? That is, we offer our mind and intelligence to Krishna. If you remember, in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita itself, Prabhupada said, this is the art of Krishna consciousness. That to always fix the mind on Krishna wherever we are situated. Fix the mind and intelligence on Krishna. That is how we will live in Krishna. This is what Krishna is telling about in this verse, and that is what Prabhupada told us in the introduction itself. So what is happening now? Now, from the first chapter to the sixth chapter, there is a slow development which culminated in the process of bhakti. In the 6th chapter to 12th chapter, 7th chapter to 12th chapter, Krishna has talked about the supremacy of bhakti in terms of it being the highest reality. And now after that, Krishna is now offering a descending ladder. Descending ladder means that Krishna is saying, yes, now once it has been concluded that bhakti is the best way. So bhakti is better than demigod worship, bhakti is better than Ashtanga yoga, bhakti is better than karma yoga, bhakti is better than jnana yoga, bhakti is better than Vishwarupa Upasana, bhakti is better than Brahmopasana. Once bhakti is best, that is made clear, then somebody may consider, okay, bhakti is good, but am I qualified to practice bhakti? Oh, bhakti seems to be so exalted. Satata yuktana, constantly engaged in service, constantly thinking of me. I'm not on that level. If I'm not on that level, what should I do? No, Krishna says, now I will offer you multiple levels of bhakti. It has been described earlier how slowly one moves from karma yoga through jnana yoga up to bhakti yoga and comes to the topmost level. But if one is not capable of doing that in terms of or rather if one thinks that okay, bhakti is the topmost, bhakti is the best, but then if bhakti is so high up, then I may not be able to practice bhakti. So what should I do? Is it that I have to, bhakti is glorious, no doubt, bhakti is the best, but maybe it is that you cannot practice bhakti directly because bhakti is so glorious. So maybe I have to practice some other paths before and then I will come to bhakti. Then Krishna will tell you, actually bhakti can also be practiced at multiple levels. And because bhakti can be practiced at multiple levels, so we can understand that we can practice bhakti at whatever level we feel equipped, we feel comfortable, and from there onwards we can rise upwards to the highest level. So first there's a gradual uprising. Sometimes like there is a road which is slow incline upwards, and then takes us to a high height. And then there can be a ladder which goes all the way from the top to the bottom. So Krishna is now going to offer a ladder of devotion, a ladder of love. So 8th to 12 talk about these verses. 12th is a very complicated verse, but let's first try to understand first things. So let's look at these 3 verses. 12.8 to 10. So this is one of the Gita Daily articles that I have been writing. So here the Bhagavad Gita 12.8 outlines a ladder of law that extends down from the highest level. So what is the highest level? Offer the mind and intelligence to Krishna entirely and thereby live in him. That's the first level. Then practice sadhana bhakti to fix the mind on Krishna and thereby increase our desire for him. And then next is work for Krishna. So what is the first? Let's look at 12.8 and 9. What is the difference between the two? Here in 12.8, the mind is directly attached to Krishna, and that's how one is able to fix the mind on Krishna. In 12.9, one is not able to. The mind doesn't have that natural attachment to Krishna. Therefore, one has to practice fixing the mind on Krishna. So the mind will go here, go there, but one brings it back. It goes at different places, one brings it back. And then below that is the level of working for Krishna. So when we come to that verse, we'll discuss about that. So the best level that Krishna recommends is fix the mind on me always. And that is the level of pure devotion. Prabhupada was in America, but Prabhupada was not in America. Now when Prabhupada left Vrindavan, he did not leave Vrindavan. Prabhupada carried Vrindavan with him. We may we may take a pure devotee out of the Vrindavan, but we cannot take Vrindavan out of a pure devotee. The pure devotee internally lives in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada was always at Krishna's lotus feet, wherever he was. So that is the highest level. Below that, one level is practice sadhana bhakti to fix the mind on Krishna. Let's look at this level quickly. So here, अथ चित्तं समाधातुं न शक्नोसि मयि स्थिरम् अभ्यासयोगेन ततो मामिच्छाप्तुं धनञ्जय. Krishna is telling, atha, if chittam samadhatum na shaknosi. If however it is not possible for you to be satisfied in thinking of Krishna, if you cannot think of me constantly, mai sthiram means steadily, then abhyasa yogena tato. Abhyasa yoga means practice yoga. That means like we do in our mantra meditation, in our chanting. What do we try to do? We try to fix the mind. The mind goes here, the mind goes there, we bring it back. As you say, the mind may stray away, but let it not stay away. It will stray away. It will go here, it will go there. And like children are restless. They will want to go here, they will want to go there. What does the mother do? Gently but firmly, the mother gets the child back. So similarly, abhyasa yoga. Now Krishna says a very interesting thing in this verse. What will by abhyasa yoga, what will happen? Abhyasa yogena tato mam ichchaptum dhananjaya. Mam ichchaptum. Obtain the desire to attain me. The word Dhananjaya is used over here. Why? Because Arjuna is known as the conqueror of wealth. But the supreme wealth is the wealth of attraction to Krishna. None of the wealth of this world can help us at the time of death. But the wealth of attraction to Krishna, the wealth of remembrance of Krishna can take us back to the spiritual world where we'll be eternally happy. So Arjuna, by being referred to by the word Dhananjaya, is being told, oh, you are the acquirer of wealth, but now acquire the supreme wealth. What is the supreme wealth? Mam ichchaptum, the desire to attain me. See, all of us, we have many desires, but we don't have the strong desire to attain Krishna. We may have many other desires, but we don't have the desire to attain Krishna. Once we get that desire, then it is the supreme perfection of life. So right now, if we look, we may say we are practicing devotional service. We wear the dress of a devotee. We even go through the actions of a devotee, but how strong is our desire for Krishna? Not very strong. But if we keep fixing the mind on Krishna, gradually at a subconscious level we start seeing, yes, fixing on the mind on Krishna is so joyful, and doing other things, it's so irritating, it becomes so agitating, so entangling. Let me just try to fix the mind on more Krishna more and more. So first we fix the mind on Krishna as a discipline, and as we fix the mind on Krishna, we start seeing, oh, this gives so much peace. It's not easy. Initially, it's not so easy to fix the mind on Krishna, but once we fix the mind, then it gives so much joy, and we start feeling, yes, let me do this more and more. So by the process of sadhana bhakti, our attraction to Krishna increases. Our desire to remember Him increases. And then from this level, we move to the next level, where once our desire for Krishna becomes strong, then naturally we'll think of Him constantly. So in this way, Krishna gives 2 levels. The future levels we'll discuss in our next class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.